Good morning, everyone. Good morning, students. Good morning, teachers, especially to Ma'am Janice Magsayo. Good morning, Ma'am. Welcome to our discussion for today. My name is Karen Jean Lyon, first-year student taking Bachelor of Secondary Education major in English in J.H. Cerelia State College, Pagadian Campus. So first, before we are going to proceed with our discussion, let me first introduce to you the reporters in this topic, and these also will serve as the sequence for the lesson discussion. First reporter is Karen Jean Lyon, followed by Miss Mary Grace Hintugao, then Miss Sandra Lee Villaflor Pasachempo, and Miss Ramis Angel Castellano. Today, we are going to learn about a certain topic in our subject EDUC 101, Child and Adolescent Learners and Learning Principles. But before we'll start with our discussion, let's have some activity first. Are you familiar with 4 Pick 1 Word? Yes, I know you are playing this word guessing game. So here you are going to guess a word that presents you with 4 pictures. What are you going to do is to guess what specific word fits with the theme of the photos presented. So here, as you can see on your screen, there are 4 pictures. Can you guess now? I'll give you 30 seconds to answer this. The picture is showing a child being surrounded by logical equations, formulas. Second picture is a child vision something or an idea. Third picture is human mind represented by a gear. And the last, the child is playing puzzle, working on shapes and colors. And down next to pictures is the clue for the correct answer. There are 3 letters missing. Okay, I think you already know what the answer. Alright, answer revealed. You can comment down your answer in this video if you find this in our Facebook page. Okay, next picture. First picture, there are different faces, skin tone or gender. Second picture is man standing as individual. Third picture, differences in body posture, height, and fourth. So there's 3 letters are missing in each word. So I guess you already know what's the correct answer. It's individual differences. I think you all the correct answers. Good job! Okay, moving on. According to Jane Goodall, every individual matters. Every individual has a role to play. Every individual makes a difference. Yes, it is very clear that we are an individual that has a role to play in our society. We are uniquely made by God. We are made with different talents, abilities, and personalities that makes us different to others. We are made with a purpose in this world and you can make a difference. Manny Pacquiao is talented in the world of boxing. He made a difference. He is famous on that field. It simply says that every individual has differences from each other. Every individual is unique and possesses different kinds of talents and abilities. So now, do you have any idea what is our topic for today's lesson? Our lesson for today is all about intelligence and individual differences. Unit 3, Lesson 3, and EDUC 101, Child and Adolescent Learners and Learning Principles. This is our learning outcomes. So, at the end of the lesson, the students should be able to do the following. First, formulate on definition of intelligence. Second, explain why do beliefs about intelligence influence learning success. And the last, compare and contrast intelligence theories and definitions. This will be the flow of our discussion. First, we're going to define intelligence and individual differences. Second, we will discuss about the components of intelligence based on studies. Third, we will learn about the different theories of intelligence and their proponent. First, the general mental ability. Second, primary mental abilities. Third, theory of multiple intelligence. Fourth, hierarchic theory of intelligence and cognitive information processing theory. So here, we'll get to learn about different concepts of intelligence. And it is very important for us to know, especially to teachers and for us as future educator, about the theory of multiple intelligence that confirms empirical experiences and can provide educators with a framework and tools that will allow them to better meet the needs of the different types of learners present in every classroom. It is important to understand these intelligence concepts because each of us has a range of skills, strengths, and weaknesses. So, for us future educators, teaching our students about the multiple intelligence theory shows them that they have something important to offer in every class or situation, and that our differences can strengthen us as a whole. It can benefit learners also when it comes to equipping students with a better understanding of how they learn. For example, learners with high musical intelligence can put together a rhyme to help them learn, or a student with a high visual spatial intelligence could create drawings of concepts to help. And fourth, the conclusion of intelligence and individual differences. Introduction. This chapter presents the various definitions and concepts related to intelligence and individual differences. It also tries to explain what intelligence is all about, using the theories advanced by the experts in this area. Hence, you will also get to know the different theories covering the intelligence and in the ways they are similar or different. The theories will also give you an idea on the role of intelligence in students' academic performance. According to Aristotle, for the things we have to learn before we can do them, we learn by doing them. So you need to learn first before you can apply what you've learned. You need to learn or gain knowledge to someone or through experiences before you can do things. It is learning from watching other performs, just like listening to others' instructions or lectures of a teacher. So our first topic, define what is intelligence. When you hear the word intelligence, what comes first in your mind? So, intelligence is, according to Oxford Languages, it is the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills, the ability to understand and learn well. How about individual differences? According to agglobal.com, individual differences refers to the extent and type of distinctions among individuals. So, distinction among individuals or differences on the psychological traits, personal characteristics, cognitive and emotional components. So individual differences can be through inherited or acquired. We are different from physical aspects, mental and temperamental. And also, we are different from our culture, social, emotional, and educational accusation. Okay, these are the types of how we are different from each other. Physical differences, gender differences, age differences, socio-economic differences, intellectual and academic differences, intelligence, school achievements, spatial aptitudes and talents, personality, interests and values, differences in background, mental age, motor ability, differences in respect of development. Now we are going to focus on what is really intelligence is, how to identify the person being intelligent and what the factors are or can a person being said to be intelligent. Intelligence is a complex concept that has caused a lot of discussion and debate. To this day, there is no clear definition as to what makes for intelligence. According to Jean Piaget, intelligence is adaptive thinking or action. I know all of you are familiar with Jean Piaget because we have done discussing Unit 3, Lesson 2, the cognitive development theories. And he is one of the proponents of these theories. So Jean Piaget was a Swiss psychologist famous for his studies of the intellectual growth of children and his influential theories of cognitive development. Okay, so intelligence is adaptive thinking or action, meaning it is the ability to learn fast, learn quickly, to solve problems, comprehend complex and abstract issues, and act in a rational, purposeful, and reasonable manner. So, he highlighted that it centers in some way on the ability to think abstractly or to solve problems effectively. Or we call this as abstract reasoning or abstract thinking that involves the ability to understand and think with complex concepts. This type of reasoning involves also thinking about ideas and principles that are often symbolic or hypothetical. So that's from Lerner et al. 2005. According to psychometric theories, intelligence is a trait or a set of traits that characterizes some people to a greater extent than others. So psychometric theories, these are theories that they believe that psychometric theories are based on a model that portrays intelligence as a composite of abilities measured by mental tests. The goals then so identify these traits precisely and to measure them so that differences among individuals can be described. Intelligence is a trait or a set of traits that characterizes some people to a greater extent than others. So meaning, it is said that instead of a single factor, intelligence is a collection of distinct abilities. A trait rests on the idea that people differ from one another in terms of where they stand on a set of basic trait dimensions that persist over time and across situations. I remember when I was in high school that I have classmates that she excelled always among my other classmates and the other year sections when we are having collaboration. So like that, so there are people that kind of level of intelligence. When you mix with the crowd or to the other people, the real smart comes out. One of the famous definitions of intelligence is from Alfred Binet, 1960. Intelligence means the capacity to judge well, to reason well, and to comprehend well. He launched the field of psychological testing. He was asked by the French Minister of the Public Education to develop a test that could be used to identify children who would have difficulty in school so that they could be given special instruction. And it will considered to be the first intelligence test for school children. So, who is Alfred Binet? What did he do and who is Theodore Simon? Alfred Binet, 1857 to 1911. A French psychologist born in Lille, France, who invented the first practical IQ test, the Binet-Simon test, and now revised as Stanford-Binet intelligence scales. Theodore Simon, 1873 to 1961, a French psychologist who worked with Alfred Binet to develop the Binet-Simon scale, one of the most widely used scales in the world for measuring intelligence. Let me give you a summary on the story behind this, how Binet-Simon intelligence scale formed. In 1905, psychologists Alfred Binet and Theodore Simon designed the test for children who were struggling in the school in France, designed to determine which children required individualized attention. Their method formed the basis of the IQ test. Beginning in the late 19th century, researchers hypothesized that cognitive abilities like verbal reasoning, working memory, and visual spatial skills reflected an underlying general intelligence or G factor. Simon and Binet designed a battery of tests to measure each of these abilities and combine the results into a single score. Questions were adjusted for each age group, and a child's score reflected how they perform relative to others their age. Dividing someone's score by their age and multiplying the result by 100 yielded the intelligence quotient or IQ. Today, a score of 100 represents the average of a sample population, with 68% of the population scoring within 15 points of 100. To know more about this, you can visit this link for deep understanding about empirical rule and normal distribution. Simon and Binet, through the skills their tests assessed, would reflect general intelligence. But both then and now, there's no single agreed upon definition of general intelligence. And that left the door open for the people to use the test in service of their own preconceived assumptions about intelligence. What started as a way to identify those who needed academic help quickly became used to sort people in other ways, often in service of deeply flawed ideologies. One of the first large-scale implementations occurred in the United States during World War I, when the military used an IQ test to sort recruits and screen them for officer training. So here in the Philippines, is it applied also in our national defense? Armed Forces of the Philippines? Yes, maybe. We call this neuropsychological test. It is a test to measure how well a person's brain is working. The abilities tested include reading, language usage, attention, learning, processing, speed, reasoning, remembering, problem solving, mood, personality, and more. It is typically include assessment of intellectual functioning or IQ. When you will apply for being an army, you will undergo in this kind of test. At that time, many people believed in eugenics, the idea that desirable and undesirable genetic traits could and should be controlled in humans through selective breeding. There were many problems with this line of thinking, among them the idea that intelligence was not only fixed and inherited, but also linked to a person's race. Under the influence of eugenics, scientists used the results of the military initiative to make erroneous claims that certain racial groups were intellectually superior to others, without taking into account that many of the recruits tested were new immigrants to the United States who lacked formal education of English language exposure. They created an erroneous intelligence hierarchy of ethnic groups. The intersection of eugenics and IQ testing influenced not only science, but policy as well. In 1924, the state of Virginia created policy allowing for the forced sterilization of people with low IQ scores, a decision the United States Supreme Court upheld. In Nazi Germany, the government authorized the murder of the children based on low IQ. So, can you imagine this? In those times, they used to kill children who has a lower IQ. So brutal. Following the Holocaust, the civil rights movement, the discriminatory uses of IQ tests were challenged on both moral and scientific grounds. Scientists began to gather evidence of the environmental impacts on IQ. For example, as IQ tests were periodically recalibrated over the 20th century, new generations scored consistently higher on all tests than each previous generations. This phenomenon, known as the Flynn effect, happened much too fast to be caused by inherited evolutionary traits. And it happened also in today's generations. Children getting smarter. Compared to us way back 15 years ago, today's generations are more advanced, much smarter than us when we are in their age. Instead, the cause was likely environmental, improved education, better healthcare, and better nutrition. So, that is the reason why people are getting smart because of improved education, better healthcare, and better nutrition. In the mid-20th century, psychologists also attempted to use IQ tests to evaluate things other than general intelligence, particularly schizophrenia, depression, and other psychiatric conditions. These diagnoses relied in the part on the clinical judgment of the evaluators, and they used the subset of the test used to determine IQ, a practice later research found does not yield clinically useful information. Today, IQ tests employ many similar design elements and types of questions as the early test, though we have better techniques for identifying potential bias in the test. They're no longer used to diagnose psychiatric conditions, but a similarly problematic practice using subtest scores is still sometimes used to diagnose learning abilities against the advice of many experts. Psychologists around the world still use IQ tests to identify intellectual disability, and the results can be used to determine appropriate educational support, job training, and assisting living. IQ test results have been used to justify horrific policies and scientifically baseless ideologies. That doesn't mean the test itself is worthless. In fact, it does a good job of measuring the reasoning and problem-solving skills it sets out to. But that isn't the same thing as measuring a person's potential. Though there are many complicated political, historical, scientific, and cultural issues wrapped up in IQ testing, more and more researchers agree on this point and reject the notion that individuals can be categorized by a single numerical score. To shorten the first IQ test, Binet-Simon scale, first measure of intelligence created by Alfred Binet and Theodore Simon. Binet developed a concept of mental age, chronological age that most typically corresponds to a given level of performance. Childhood as well as the average 8-year-old is said to have a mental age of 8. Here, I remember my cousin. She has a mental problem. Her age is 25 years old, but she acts and thinks like a 5 years old, according to her psychiatrist. So this is the formula for intelligence quotient or IQ. It aims to express the intelligence potential of an individual numerically. And also, this is the example of IQ score that are normally distributed with a mean of 100 and standard deviation of 115. To better understand what is this, you can visit this link. Binet-Simon scale. Anyone with a score under 70 is classified as definite feeble-minded or mentally defective. Anyone with a score between 70 and 79 would have a borderline deficiency. Anyone with a score between 80 to 89 would be afflicted with dullness or low average. Most people have a score between 90 and 109, which means that they are classed as having a normal or average intelligence. Once you get an IQ score of 110, you begin to take note. A score between 110 and 119 would indicate a high average intelligence. A score between 120 and 140 would mean a very superior intelligence. A score over 140 would indicate genius or near genius. Marilyn Vos-Savant, the person with the highest IQ score in the world, an American magazine columnist, author, lecturer, and playwright, according to the Guinness Book of Records. She has an IQ of 228. Copyright 2021, WDRB Media. So this is also Stanford Binet scale version, Stanford Binet 5th edition SP5. Score classification. IQ range, deviation, IQ 145 to 160, IQ classification, very gifted or highly advanced. 130 to 144, gifted or very advanced. 120 to 129, superior. 110 to 119, high average, 90 to 109, average, 80 to 89, low average, 70 to 79, borderline impaired or delayed, 59 to 69, mildly impaired or delayed, 40 to 54, moderately impaired or delayed. Who are the people holding the world record for high IQ? So, the person with the highest IQ ever recorded in Ainian is Ainian Celeste Cowley with an IQ score of 263. The list continues as follows with the highest possible IQ. Ainian Celeste Cowley, IQ score of 263. William James Sidis, IQ score of 250 to 300. Terence Tao, IQ score between 225 and 230. Marilyn Vusavan, IQ score of 228. Christopher Hirata, IQ score of 225. Kim Young-jong, IQ score of 210. Edith Stern, IQ score over 200. Christopher Michael Langan, IQ score between 190 and 210. Gary Kasparov, IQ score of 194. Philip Imiagwali, IQ score of 190. Judith Polgar, IQ score of 170. Albert Einstein, IQ score between 160 and 190. Stephen Hawking, IQ score of 160. This is the timeline, revisions of the Stanford-Binet Intelligence Scale. To begin, April 1905, development of Binet-Simon test announced at the conference in Rome. June 1905, Binet-Simon intelligence test introduced. 1908 and 1911, new versions of Binet-Simon intelligence test. 1916, Stanford-Binet first edition by Thurman. 1937, second edition by Thurman and Merrill. 1960, LM modified second edition by Merrill. 1973, third edition by Merrill. 1937, re-normed. 1986, fourth edition by Thorndike, Hagen, and Sattler. 2003, fifth edition by Roy. Next is the components and understanding intelligence, ARMRAD 2015. A. It is adaptive. It involves modifying and adjusting one's behaviors to accomplish new tasks carefully. B. It is related to learning abilities. Intelligent people learn information more quickly and easily than the less intelligent ones. C. It involves use of prior knowledge to understand and analyze new situations effectively. D. It involves the complex interaction and coordination of many different mental processes. E. It may be seen in different arenas, for example, on academic tasks or in social situations. F. It is culture-specific. What is intelligence behavior in our culture may not necessarily be intelligent behavior in another culture. These are the theories of intelligence. First is the general mental ability. Second is primary mental abilities. Third, theory of multiple intelligence. Fourth, hierarchic theory of intelligence. And fifth, cognitive information processing theory. The general mental ability. Charles Edward Spearman, 1863 to 1945, born in London, England, was a British psychologist known for work in statistics as a pioneer of factor analysis and for Spearman's rank correlation coefficient. He theorized that a general factor of intelligence, G, is present in varying degrees in different human abilities. Charles Spearman proposed that intelligence has two aspects, general ability or G, and special abilities or S, as each of which is specific to a particular kind of task. An illustration of Spearman's two-factor intelligence theory. Each small oval is a hypothetical mental test. The blue areas correspond to test specific variance, S, while the purple areas represent the variance attributed to G. G factor refers to a general mental ability that, according to Spearman, underlies multiple specific skills, including verbal, spatial, numerical, and mechanical. S factor is also called as the special ability of an individual. It is not involved in all activities. It is acquired in the environment. It varies from activity to activity. It varies from individual to individual. Primary mental abilities. Louis Leon Thurston was a U.S. pioneer in the fields of psychometric and psychophysics. He conceived the approach to measure known as the law of comparative judgment and is well known of his contributions to factor analysis. Primary mental ability referred to 7 factors identified by Louis Leon Thurston. These 7 factors or primary mental abilities are word fluency, verbal comprehension, spatial visualization, number facility, associative memory, reasoning, and perceptual speed. Spatial ability is the ability to visualize relationships. Perceptual speed, the quick noting of visual detail. Numerical reasoning is the ability to solve arithmetic problems. Verbal meaning, the ability to define and understand words. Word fluency is the ability to produce words rapidly. Memory, the ability to memorize and recall. And inductive reasoning is formation of a role to describe a set of observations. These are my references and the end of my report. There is another reporter next. Thank you for listening on me.
Good day. I will discuss the theories of multiple intelligence by Howard Gardner. Howard Gardner rejects the idea that a single IQ score is a meaningful measure of human intelligence. Gardner argues that there are at least 8 distinct intellectual abilities. So Howard Gardner, he gave a significant measure of human intelligence. He also finds that there are at least 8 distinct intellectual abilities. The 8 criteria for identifying an intelligence are isolation as a brain function, prodigious savants and exceptional individuals, set of core operations, developmental history with an expert and performance, evolutionary history, supported psychological tasks, supported psychometric tasks, and the last is encoded into a symbol system. So, isolation as a brain function is the certain brain areas are identified in cases of brain injury and degenerative disease to identify actual psychological locations for a specific brain function. A true intelligence will have its function identified in a specific location in the human brain. Second is prodigious savants and exceptional individuals. Human record of genius such as Mozart being able to perform on the piano at the age of 4 and other people displaying unique abilities whether it may be in music, mathematics, or language. The evidence of specific human abilities which can demonstrate themselves to high degrees in unique cases is a criterion for identification of an intelligence. Highly developed examples of a true intelligence are recorded in rare occurrences. Example, there are kids who already know how to play a guitar, know how to read a deep words, and who already know how to show their talents even they are still a 2 years old or a kid. Third, set of core operations. There is an identifiable set of procedures and practices which are unique to each true intelligence. For example, in understanding a language, there are letters and words. In music, there are notes. In logical, mathematical, there are numbers. Fourth, developmental history with an expert and performance. As experts continue to study the developmental stages of human growth and learning, a clear pattern of developmental history is being documented of the human mind. So, a true intelligence has an identifiable set of stages of growth have reached the master level for each intelligence. For example, there are 2 years old who already know how to solve the mathematical. So he reached the master level for each intelligence. Fifth, evolutionary history. As a cultural anthropologist continue to study the history of human evolution, there is adequate evidence that our species has developed intelligence over time through human experience. Sixth, supported psychological tasks. Clinical psychologists can identify sets of tasks for different domains of human behavior. True intelligence can be identified by specific types tasks which can be carried out, observed, and measured on how our capabilities become. 7. Supported psychometric tasks. The use of psychometric instruments to measure intelligence, such as IQ tests, have traditionally all been used to measure only specific types of ability. However, these tests can be designed and used to identify and quantify true unique intelligence. The multiple intelligences theory does not reject psychometric testing for specific scientific study rather. The last is encoded into a symbol system. Humans have developed many kinds of symbol systems over time for varied disciplines. True intelligence has its own set of images it uses which are unique to itself and are important in completing its identified set of tasks. From the 8 criteria, the 8 multiple intelligences were developed, which are linguistic intelligence, language skills as seen in the poet's facility with words, science, and sciences as emphasized by Piaget. Logical mathematical intelligence, the abstract thinking and problem solving shown by mathematics. Musical intelligence, based on acute sensitivity to sound patterns. Spatial intelligence, most of use in great artists who can perceive things accurately and transform what they see. Bodily kinesthetic intelligence, the intelligence movement shown by dancers, athletes, and surgeons. Interpersonal intelligence, social intelligence, social skills, exceptional sensitivity to other people's motivation and moods. Interpersonal intelligence, understanding of one's own feelings and inner life. Naturalistic intelligence, the ability to observe patterns in nature and understand natural and human-made.
Good day everyone, I am Zandrili V. Pasachempo and my assigned topic is all about Cognitive Information Processing Theory by Atkinson and Schifrin. So I have here the pictures of John William Atkinson and Richard Schifrin and also their background for you to have a knowledge of who they are. John William Atkinson, also known as Jack Atkinson, was an American psychologist who pioneered the scientific study of human motivation, achievement, and behavior. He was a World War II veteran, teacher, scholar, and long-term member of the University of Michigan community. Richard Schifrin. Richard Schifrin is an American psychologist, professor of cognitive science in the Department of Psychological and Brain Sciences at Indiana University, Bloomington. Schifrin has contributed a number of theories of attention and memory to the field of psychology. He is also known for empirical, theoretical, and computational work in the modeling of human cognition. The Atkinson and Schifrin model was proposed in 1968 by John William Atkinson and Richard Schifrin. This model illustrates their theory of the human memory. These two theorists used this model to show that the human memory can be broken into three subsections. The first one is sensory memory, short-term memory, and the last one is long-term memory. Sensory memory. The sensory memory is responsible for holding onto information that the mind receives through the senses such as auditory and visual information. It holds the information that the mind perceives through various senses such as visual or auditory information. These sense organs often receive a barrage of stimuli all the time. However, most are ignored and forgotten by the mind to prevent getting overwhelmed. For example, if someone were to hear a bird chirp, they know that is a bird because that information is held in the brief sensory memory. Sensory memory is affiliated with the transduction of energy, change from one energy to another. The environment makes available a variety of sources of information such as light, sound, smell, heat, cold, and etc. But the brain only understands electrical energy. The body has special sensory receptor cells that transduce change from one form of energy to another. This external energy to something the brain can understand. When sensory information engages and gets the attention of the mind, it is transferred to short-term memory. Short-term memory. Short-term memory lasts for about 30 seconds and retains information that is needed for only a short period of time, such as remembering a phone number that needs to be dialed. Short-term memory is also called working memory and relates to what we are thinking about at any given moment in time. It is created by our paying attention to an external stimulus and internal thought, or both. For example, you are processing the words you read on the screen in your frontal lobes. However, if I ask, "What is your telephone number?" your brain immediately calls that from long-term memory and replaces that was previously there. The third one is long-term memory. The long-term memory has an unlimited amount of space. In the long-term memory, there can be memory stored in there from the beginning of our lifetime. It is tapped into when there is a need to recall an event that happened in an individual's previous experiences. It is thought that the long-term memory has an unlimited amount of space, as it can store memories from a long time ago to be retrieved at a later time. Various methods are used to store information in the long-term memory, such as repetition, connecting information, relating information to meaningful experience or other information, and breaking up the information into smaller.
Today, everyone, I will be tackle about the triarchic theory of intelligence. It was formulated by Robert Sternberg in the 1980s. The theory attempts to understand the human intelligence in terms of distinct components rather than a single ability. The triarchic theory by Sternberg categorized intelligence into three different aspects. The first one is componential or analytic skills, experimental component or creativity, and contextual skills or component or practical. Before Sternberg, general intelligence was the idea that dominated most of the intelligence theories. However, Sternberg believed intelligence to be a much more complex subject matter, which led him to propose a theory dealing with the cognitive approach to intelligence theory rather than a behavioristic viewpoint. He believed that a person's adaptation to the changing environment and his contribution of knowledge in shaping the world around them had a significant importance in determining their intelligence. Sternberg also argued that intelligent tests were wrong to ignore creativity, and there are always other important characteristics like cognitive process, performance components, planning and decision-making skills, and so on. The first one is the componential intelligence or analytical intelligence. Can also be referred to as being a book smart. This form of intelligence is more in terms with the traditional definition of IQ and academic achievement. It's also called componential intelligence because of its analytic nature. The person with high analytical intelligence is good at problem solving. These people are generally more able to see the solution not normally seen because of their abstract thinking and evaluation skills. Analyzing someone's analytical intelligence can be done by few general questions like: how good are you at analyzing technical problems? What's your history of scoring in standardized tests? So for example, Emma always scores high on standardized tests. It's because of her ability to evaluate and analyze materials using abstract thinking in order to achieve solutions. The second intelligence is the contextual component or practical. In simple words, it is practical intelligence, can be defined as street smart. The ability of a person to adapt in an environment or change it accordingly to best suit the personal needs is dubbed as practical intelligence. Another way to understand such type of intelligence is a common sense. Dealing with the everyday tasks in the best possible manner show the person's intelligence. Analyzing someone's practical intelligence level can be done by few general questions like: would the person be taken advantage of easily? Do they adjust well to the world around them? Are they comfortable with the daily adventures? Or a person who is street smart or a high on practical intelligence is more able to cope in concrete situations. For example, Johnny is considering buying a second-hand motorbike. Being a salesman would obviously try to con the buyer, but Johnny is already prepared with price comparisons and has made up his mind to say no to unnecessary extras. So, that's all for the intelligence of the three intelligence or the triarchic tree of intelligence by Robert Sternberg. That's all. Thank you. And individual differences. People belong to a group called human beings. Be as it may, each person has its own unique characteristics, different from others. Each person has his own individuality, contributing to variations or differences within among individuals. Individuals may have differences along the following physiological or psychological or intellectual differences. Differences in motor ability, academic performance, emotional differences, temperament, aptitudes and interests, self-concept, learning styles, study habits, social and moral development, and etc. So heredity and environment are the two main factors that explain individual differences. Second, intelligence is a significant source of variation among individuals. Individual differences in intelligence bear on differences in other areas like emotional intelligence, academic performance, learning styles, and the like. So, for example, one's level of academic performance can be explained by one's level of intelligence. Thus, in a class, students may have differences in academic performance because of different in their intelligence level. So that's all. Thank you for listening. Bye!